Truth and lies, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but it seems that so often the most unpleasant experiences produce the best songs.
This is true. I have found that when you're just kind of going through hell, that's when you're the most creative. And then, like, I went through this period where I wrote all these songs, and then I got married and had a daughter and got happy, and then it didn't write for a while. It was like I just wanted to enjoy things for a little bit, but then I, kind of slowly got back into it. So, not that I was miserable, but it's just that the creativity started flowing again.
Well, that's a relief. So you don't have to be miserable to be creative.
That's right. That's true.
I'm glad to hear that. Although it brings up something. My friend Clifford, for a time, worked for the Department of Juvenile Justice in rural northwest Georgia, and there's a quote on your website, Cliff, from a reviewer who said, "In what Cliff says is a sort of recreation of his days working with the Department of Juvenile Justice in rural northwest Georgia. These poems will sting you with their honesty and shock you with their insight."
Yes.
So was that a similar kind of experience for you, Cliff, that doing something that I don't think you found entirely abhorrent, it just wasn't a good fit, right?
Well, I worked with I was with juvenile justice for 6 years, and then I worked with DFACS or social services for 4. And I loved the job, but there were jobs that because you dealt with people and not a product, that it took a lot out of you. Many of the poems, I was very careful not to use my clients as subjects to either exemplify the way I feel or to any way feel like I was on any level exploiting this pain that I watched. But due to being in a rural area, I didn't see a great deal of the hardships that they do in much more urban areas. In every case, I had 97% of folks that had gone through a little trouble, whether as children or as adults, and got, through the help of many people, with me included, not just me alone, but with a team, put back on the right track. And there was, but that 2 or 3% that were just from situations I couldn't wrap my head around. They didn't overshadow everything, but they definitely stuck with you. And that's what I had to put down on paper. Again, that writing is therapy and it's catharsis. That I created an epic in my first book about a place. We've all said, like, we've seen something terrible and said there's a place worse than hell for some folks. And so I created a place, and it was not to judge people, but it was I was either going to get back to drinking or get that on the page. And so I chose to get on the page, and that's what he was talking about.
It's interesting that you talk about rural versus urban. There was a man here a few weeks ago, and his philosophy on how to help homeless people. And the reason that many people become homeless is because they don't have a network. They feel isolated. And in that situation, when something happens that derails them, even if it's only temporary, it's very difficult for them to recover. And and maybe this is a cliche too, that the assumption that people who live in rural areas are more supportive of one another than people in urban areas. Do you think that's true?
There are exceptions to everything. I'm not trying to incite a riot when I say this, but you tend to be folks when you are not the gang, but when you're in a rural area, there does, because there's less people. In my opinion, you tend to put a face to folks more often, whereas in the city, you do and it's part of the attraction. And I lived in Atlanta, Georgia for several years, and I enjoyed the anonymity of that, But one bad decision that trips you up, as you says, into the gutter, per se, it does seem more apt that people are going to step over you versus to hold a hand down. And I'm not trying to make the rural area seem some paradise, but it's harder to ignore with fewer people, I think.
Well, and there's also that kind of overwhelming feeling of numbers.
Right.
Whenever I go back to London, I just can't imagine, I don't know if this is true for you, Michael, living in London at this point. There are so many people.
I chose Chattanooga principally because it was small. It had the feel of a real city without the impersonal nature of a big city. I've been to New York, hated it. so many times I've gone to places thinking this is going to be a great experience and found it, frankly, a major letdown. And then I've gone to small places and had the most wonderful experiences. Tiny, tiny villages in the middle of a desert, for example, little oases and things like this. And of course, you think, well, it's exotic and it's far away and it's going to be great no matter what. But I don't know. People matter, and how they treat you is important. And in the cities, the only time I ever got mugged was in a city. The only time I had somebody show me the hand was in a city. New York, of course. Where else?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel small towns are really what I want in life. I mean, if I could, I'd live in up on a mountain with trees and wolves for neighbors. That's my ideal.
Use a wolf, a neighbor?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, lovely things.
Yeah, I feel like Chattanooga is kind of a Goldilocks city.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
It's not too big, not too small,
Right.
just right.
I love that. That's good.
that's lovely.
I do too. I think that's great. No, that's so
You
true.
get a lot of the
Yeah.
benefits of that you would in a
see
big
story
city.
coming
Yeah.
from that title, the Goldilocks City.
Clifford, would you care to share your poem?
I will. I like the Goldilocks cities. I'd gravitate to those. You have Athens, Georgia, where I'm from. You have Rome, Georgia. We talked about that. Decatur is right off of Atlanta. Chattanooga again is one of those where you try. Charleston, I love Charleston. Savannah, again, they don't want to be cities, but they have more. They seem to have more culture per capita than a nameless big city. So this one is about. It's called In the South. And it was a night. My poetry is extremely literal. If you think that's what it means, I swear that's what it is. And this is me. There was a homeless man playing Vivaldi. It's not metaphorical for anything. He's playing Vivaldi on his violin downtown Athens, and I was having an imaginary conversation with somebody, and walking away from a poisonous, toxic situation. And it's called In the South. Cicadas offer no history, only a permanent revolution of seasons, a melody, or a natural catastrophe. Our loose thoughts combined after I told you about the blonde vagabond playing Vivaldi downtown, with only his toes touching the ground. How the soothing sounds of those strings spread were his roots among us that challenged reality. In it, he was the only soul entangled. His violin was spotless, though he was not. He was a stalagmite, vapor, the remnants of awful parents. Vacant eyes, gaping mouth, unkempt. He was another time-wasted thing, disintegrating from an inability to remain tangible. Shadows crowding round, same as you see on the road home through Yazoo, Waco, and Monroe. Impassable because your headlights always shined behind. Nevertheless, a surreal night and sight on Hancock that made that man like the dark wood of a dining table, primer still smelling of orange blossoms wiped up in dusty plumes, letters propped up against a vase beneath the bowing heads of crested irises. Nearby his grandfather's photo in black and white, expensive parchment for better letters unused. But today, for me, a lady is a fading reflection as I look out from a sturdy frame. The air is filled with cynicism. For years I collected specters in a blue Bible, and tonight I give them all to Vivaldi's madman. Those motels the lying sleep this time to mend, they are forgotten secrets between us and lunacy. They are no longer yours, and they are no longer mine. Cicadas play to help remember, keeping time the way a metronome does, not to pass the hour, but to hone its rhythm. They are blades that slice away what I don't want.
Clifford Brooks, one of my favorite poets. Where can people find your poetry, Clifford?
My poetry can be found through my publisher's website, Kudzu Leaf Press, and it's www.kudzuleafpress.com.
And I think you also publish your poems in the Blue Mountain Review?
I do from time to time, but I do, and I expect to see material from all of you here today. I'm talking to you three, yes. I try to keep my influences at a minimum, as all things with the Southern Collective Experience, because I think that if I saturate it too much with me, I've got my own thing going, and I don't want to.
I understand.
Yeah, I don't want to create.
Yeah.
I mean, and I want people that are listening to this to check out southerncollectiveexperience.com to read the current and past issues of the Blue Mountain Review and submit. I mean, we take all genres. We consider it a journal of culture, not to try and be cliche, but, we consider architects and chefs and hairdressers and road workers and lawn care, not to, I had a friend of mine that worked on a golf course and maintenance, about 80 years old, tell me Clifford, there's an art to everything. And so that's what we try to glean and provide in the magazine.
I think that's so true. As a teenager, I couldn't stick to anything because everything I was being asked to do, I didn't really want to do. So I'd constantly be moving into another world, and somebody would say, "Let me show you how to do this, kid." And of course, I didn't have the patience to let them do it. But now looking back on it, I can see the truth of what you're saying. That these were people who had spent maybe 20 or 30 years of their lives figuring out how to do whatever it was they did, which to me may have seemed, boring and irrelevant, but it was their life's work.
And you can tell with writing, as with anything, they loved to do it. Mm-hmm. So it was always intriguing to me, like, that seems so boring. And instead of like where many people, and again, where many would jump to go, oh, how could you do? I want to say, like, how do you love that? Tell me why you love that. What makes you sing? And the stories behind that are what make up life.
Yeah.
And it removes judgment, if anything.
And everybody's got a story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it almost doesn't matter what it is that people do, so long as they're passionate about it. And if they're passionate, that passion will convey itself, and it makes it relevant for anybody and everybody.
Well said. Jason, would you care to do one more song? And then I think Michael's going to share a story with us about Burning the Bolt.
It's a song called Move On, more personal experience. Clifford can relate to this. When I graduated from Barry in Rome, I lived with some friends there in a big, huge yellow house on Clock Tower Hill. And it was some good times. I had 3 roommates that were my best friends, but then we started getting jobs out of town and getting married and moving out. And so this was just kind of my processing, saying goodbye to that point in my life. It's called Move On. We started out, we had a plan, such high hopes when we began, and all of it was real. Still we believe, days and weeks turned into years, seeking shelter, laughing tears, and my hard time will fly. We just can't say goodbye. Remember the good times, they will live on. Can't live in past now, so we've gotta move on. Now our time is gone. Oh, yeah. Laughter rolling down the hall, smashing, dancing to the wall, and how I will pretend come to an end. Remember the good times, they will live on. Can't live in the past now, so we've gotta move on. Now our time is. Remember the good times, they will live on. We can't live in the past now, so we've gotta move on. Remember the good times, they will live on. We can't live in the past now, so we've gotta move on. Now our time is gone.
Jason Lyles, the underwater acoustic spree, is that right?
Undersea acoustic spree.
The undersea
Yeah,
the undersea acoustic spree.
right. And I
Is the name of
did.
the album?
I didn't mention this the other night. It's kind of a play on words because the whole album is down tuned a half step, so undersea acoustic spree. So kind of a joke, and but I kind of built a whole ocean theme off of that. So kind of fun.
Do you have a website?
I do. It's jasonlylesmusic.com. Lyles with a Y. And it's also on all the social media at Jason Lyles Music.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
So, Michael, your story about Bernie the Bolt?
Okay, sure. Well, before we get there, let me just plug something, if I may. So, I mentioned last time I was here that I'm a member of the Chattanooga Writers Guild. This probably comes as no surprise. I love the city and I love writing, so it's a natural fit. We're hosting a competition from April the 1st. A writing competition, poetry, prose, short stories, and you can find all about it on our website, ChattanoogaWritersGuild.org. And there's cash money to be won. I can't ask for more than that, eh? So you get the prestige, you get the cash, and you'll even be invited to the Writers' Fair if you are, in fact, a winner. So with that out of the way,
And that's open to anybody.
oh, yes. Actually, it's not just for members of the Guild, it's for non-members, people in the state, people out of the state, people out of their gourd, frankly. Anybody, anywhere, on any topic.
So how does one apply for this?
Yeah, you go to the website and you'll see the instructions. It's just basically you write a story, you follow the instructions and send it in.
And it's Chattanooga Writers Guild?
ChattanoogaWritersGuild.org. All right, so yeah, we've been kicking around this anecdote from my murky past. That when I was in school, I had a nickname, Bernie the Bolt. You may not know this, but there used to be a show on TV called Golden Arrow or something of that nature. Do you remember this? Well, maybe you had it here in the States, I don't know. But basically the point was somebody blindfolded had to guide somebody else to shoot a crossbow at a target. And I presume the higher the points, the more the prizes or some nonsense of that nature. But it turned out the guy shooting the actual crossbow, his name on the show was Bernie the Bolt. And so that name became applied to me after one incident involving a bit of fun we were having. I was about 12 years old, I think, and, you know, kids back in the 70s, we were feral. We were turned out in the morning and not expected to come back until the evening. And if we came back dirty, scuffed up, bruised and battered, that was all to be expected. In the bath with us, have some supper and go to bed, and repeat the next day. Well, in one particular, well, okay, we didn't have TV, we didn't have, we had TV, there was just nothing on it, of course. We didn't have anything that people today have for entertainment purposes, so it was all about the creative imagination. And so we did what every kid does, before the invention of the Game Boy. We went outside and shot things at each other. And we were playing some kind of war game or Cowboys and Indians or something to do with somebody chasing somebody else. Turns out one of my classmates had a real gun. And it wasn't a powerful gun. It was a rifle used for hunting rabbits or something like that. I don't know what that would be. Maybe a 22 or something, a very low, small caliber something. I mean, everybody else had potato guns. You screw the potato into it and then you shoot it.
Yes, I do.
Very, very ineffectual over any distance above about 2 or 3 feet. But this guy, he was practically a sniper with this thing. He was, he was taking pot shots at us and we were running away from him. And I made the rather stupid mistake of actually doing what I was told. And somebody says, Mike, get up there on that hill and see if you can see them, because we were playing in the countryside and we were roaming over miles and miles of terrain. It was like a territorial army exercise of some kind. And I stood up on the hill and I scouted the area and got shot in the ass. But the good news is it barely broke the skin. It was a very minor thing. Of course, I felt it and I was bruised and I was, felt assaulted. And for years afterwards, I was known as Bernie the Bolt, who got shot in the leg. And that's the story.
Wow, you've created a whole new persona for yourself.
Yeah.
I forgot about this story. I haven't thought about it for probably 25, 30 years or something ridiculous. It worries me what else is down there.
Yeah, you might want to look at it. So where can people find your work? What's the best way to find it?
Yeah, you can go on Amazon and Google me or whatever. MJ Cabernis is how I sign my books. Or simply go to driventowrite.com. driventowrite.com. That's where I post articles or awful pictures of myself, things of that nature.
So much fun. Thank you so much, everybody. Nancy, would you like to do one more song? The microphone's sitting there waiting for you if you care to. Just come on over. Clifford, it's always a pleasure.
It's always good to be here, man.
Give your show another plug. It's the third Wednesday of every month.
Yes, Dante's Old South is through WUTC NPR every third Sunday at 8 p.m.
And we have a hoot with that too, don't we?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
I said last time I would like to come back again and actually perform a song myself. And I thought seriously about trying to write something, and I gave it a go, and it was awful. And it was so terrible. I was pressuring myself to write something for the show, and I couldn't do it. And it just makes me have so much more respect for those people that do and can. Mm-hmm. So kudos.
Maybe you should spend some time with Nancy and Jason. Give you some hints.
Maybe some of the thing will rub off on me.
I think I want to play Deadwoods because my son asked if I would play this.
Your son asked you to play this?
He did ask me. I said, "What song should
we
I
haven't
play?"
recognized your sons. I bet they're listening, huh? Why don't you
Maybe.
say their
I
names.
tried to get them to come, and they didn't. They both
They're
backed out.
teenagers, right?
Barely. I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My daughter was desperate to come, and I told her she wasn't coming for anything because she wouldn't sit still, and she would chitter-chatter, and she'd be jumping all over all the furniture and things. So I said, no way. Okay. But if it's an open invitation, next time.
Absolutely.
I would be afraid that mine would take over this room. I want to talk and tell stories.
My daughter would dance and steal the show.
Words don't mean a thing when they're not said. Birds don't make a sound when they are dead. You don't have what you want, you don't have what you need. Go on and set it free. Go cast all the stones and bury the bones and take a train away, yeah, from here. Away, dreams won't ever be when they're not shared. The truth may never lie if it's not fed. I don't have what I want, I don't have what I need. I'm gonna set it free. Gonna sing to the moon a sweet little tune and send you away, away, yeah, from here. Away, yeah, from here. Gonna take that, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that train. Gonna take it. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take that train. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take that train. Can't you hear that beat? Sweeps me off my feet. Stealing rails.
Thanks so much, Nancy. What's the best way to find your music?
Online, you can find it nancydwightsiders.com, and that's Siders, that is Seiters, that's Ters. And it's very hard to spell, so.
But you also have those two albums of recordings that you made, right?
I do. You can, and I think I have everything on there. So
That's all under that same site.
Yes, you can get that. I don't think I have any hard copies of CDs anymore at all. I think they're all gone. I don't think people do that anymore.
Are you thinking about ever doing that again?
I would love to. Actually, I have so many songs that I need to record. So I have like a mega album coming out from the last 20 years since I recorded the last one. It's gonna have 60 songs on it, I think. No.
Well, I tell you, you're always welcome to come back, and so if each time you come back you play a few different songs, after a while we're going to have recordings of most of them, won't we?
Perfect.
Yeah,
yes,
let's do it like
it's
that.
a plan. Thank you, Richard.
Nancy Dwight Siders, Clifford Brooks, Jason Lyles, Michael Cabonis, thank you so much for sharing your time and your talent. I think the best compliment I can pay you is that I just realized that for a couple of hours all I've been thinking about is what you've been talking about. Thank you so much. And I hope you'll come again.